Friday night is the Rangers Journal night.
Good evening, Rangers fans. Welcome to the Rangers Journal. It's Friday, the 23rd of August. Today, we're going to be taking a look ahead at tomorrow's Scottish Premiership game against Ross County from Hambrox, as we call it now. I've got Gary with me tonight. We've also potentially got Dave, who's going to join in a little bit. But Gary, how are you, mate? Happy Friday.
Thank you, Ross. That's good. Start of the weekend already. It's been a strange week, without any games. It's been a little bit quiet, a little bit, I don't know, nice. Although rather a Champions League playoff, but it's about a game after game after game to talk about and stress over. It's been a different kind of week.
Yeah. I was checking, I think, Tuesday and Wednesday to see what was on. I was watching the Premiership on, or the English Prem on Monday night, and then kind of Tuesday, Wednesday was like, is there anything good worth watching here? But no, sadly not for us this week, mate. But they'll come thick and fast as the dark nights roll in, I'm sure. Speaking of Hambrox and Hampden, I think the word on the street is that Ibrox looks to be, well, what was the term that John Bennett used? Was aspirational timescales, and I think it looks like we could be hitting that, mate. What do you think that'd do for us getting back there as soon as possible?
It's getting there, isn't it? Caveat and aspirational and words like that we've been using for the last couple of weeks. Amazing. You know, I've been to the games at Hampden. I think I've said to me quite vocal in the pod that it's been not very comfortable. It doesn't feel at home. It's a kind of strange kind of feeling about it. Not least, we've also lost 40,000 fans over the last two games from, they've not been at the game, so we've lost a lot of money, as much as anything else. So the quicker we're back, sorry, Ross, you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, why do you think it is the fans aren't turning up? Just a maybe a mood around the camp, or just the sort of sheer kind of logistics of it?
I think it is a mood. I think the continuous credit card scheme plays a big part of it, because obviously the people have signed up to games and then they go to games, or they give a ticket to other people instead of going to games. So when they've got an option of whether to choose to go to the game or not, like the European ones or the League Cup, when there's maybe been more making that choice. Particularly if you think of the St Johnstone game, it's live on, what is it, Premier Sports or Viaplay, I can't remember whatever it's called now, at 5:30 on a Saturday night. Would you go and watch that, or would you stay in the house? Unless you've paid for it at the start of the season. I can understand why people did, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
The general malaise across the club with people is obviously still playing a part as well, but predominantly it's to do with the times of the games being on TV, and the fact that you're not signed up for them at the start of the season as you would have been at Ibrox.
Yeah. But I was thinking about this the other day as well. It's going to be some reception when we do get back in there. I think we take it for granted a bit, don't we?
Yeah, do you know, I went the first game, and what was the league game? Was it Motherwell? Went the first game against Motherwell and thought, this is fine. It's like a run-of-the-mill league game. The atmosphere is what a league game would be like. It's not particularly different. Strangely enough, the whole crowd stood up for the 90 minutes because we were at Hampden, not really realising nothing was happening in the game. It was just because that's what you do, these kind of things. But it felt fine. You know, it was all right. It was really noticeable, though, when you went to the European game, that the atmosphere was dead. It was flat. And then, obviously, the League Cup game after that. So I think the league game tomorrow should be okay. There'll be 45 to 50,000 people there. The crowd will be what it's normally like at a league game to some extent. And we're obviously, hopefully, wishing to get back to Ibrox, 4 weeks from now?
Yeah. I mean, the reports and the word that's on the street, thanks for those that are putting in the chat there, is that the pitch is going to take a bit of time to recover. Obviously, there's been sort of heavy machinery and a lot of materials sat on there, so it will take a while. But when we do get back in there, especially those European nights, I'm sure we'll all savour it that little bit more. It's almost felt like we've had sort of 2 away games, or 3 away games so far. But look, thanks for the.
They're also saying the pitch is 3 weeks away. The game's 4 weeks away. I suppose that's what we're holding out. If the pitch is 3 weeks away, the scaffolding or the cranes off the pitch, there should be no reason why the pitch should be there. It's a very, very small part of the goal around the Copeland. It runs right along, but it's not a large part of the pitch. So I'm very hopeful that the pitch isn't an issue. It's more the seats being in time. Yeah,
that's it. And you'd think 3 weeks is more than enough. They would have planned in for that, wouldn't they? Because no matter what, when the works would have finished, they would have needed to, the pitch would have needed to recover. Thanks for everyone that's joining at home or listening to wherever you get your podcasts. You listen to the Rangers Journal. Today we are taking a little look at tomorrow's opponents, Ross County, and we're going to talk through a bit about some of our team lineups and I guess some other news that's streaming out of Ibrox these past few days. So Gary, let's look ahead to tomorrow's game. How do you think we've gotten on so far this season?
I suppose we've got the perception version of it as to how people feel we played with the results, or probably the reality. I mean, I think the Motherwell game, for large portions, certainly the first half hour we were really good. Next half hour we were fine. Last half hour we were hanging on a wee bit, but it wasn't like it wasn't particularly bad. The game against Dynamo Kiev, both games actually, bar a bad decision, we still think we still like to think we were through in those games. And against St Johnstone, despite the apathy, and I was at the game, it didn't feel enjoyable there. But when you went away and actually read the comments, read the views from everybody else, we actually played reasonably well. So I think our performances have been all right. We're going through a bit of transition. There's lots of players come back from injury. There's players bedding into the team. There's a whole host of things happening around Ibrox, as we've talked about, not being there. The discontent around the board. There's a lot of things happening around the club. But I don't actually think the games have been quite as bad as maybe some would have you believe at times.
Yeah. It'd be good to get your views as well, those that are watching or listening at home. For me, it's been, I think Curry said it there, a wishy-washy start to the season. I think it was, given that it's such a transitionary time for us with the players that we've got, with the stadium, with, dropping out of that Champions League so early. There has been a bit of a negative feel. I think that's fair to say, so a slightly negative feel towards the board. And I think we use the term board quite liberally, but we don't actually know exactly who we're pointing the blame at, because I don't know if we have that focal point that of leadership that actually is the one to be held accountable for, which again is a frustration in itself. From my point of view, I think the players have done well. I'd say sort of pass marks, probably most of them, but actually, it's very, very clear that we do need a lot of reinforcements. What did you make, Gary? I'm not sure if you heard what any of Clement's presser today when he was asked a little bit about the sort of transfer business that's taking place now, and he was quite coy, quite hesitant. But what he did say was that it's clear that we need to make several changes this week.
Yeah, I think it was one of those press conferences where you say very little, but you say a lot in it. I think I'm listening to it. It seemed quite clear to me that there was a number of players that were pretty much on their way out and are close to leaving, although he wouldn't confirm some of those, and we'll probably talk about some of them as we go on in the next wee while. But also that he was confident. He said a few times about 3 or 4 players in, or something along those lines. And I think over the next 7 days and 3 hours, 4 hours, I'd be surprised if we don't have 3 or 4 in and 3 or 4 out, based on just listening and reading. I suppose it's always with these press conferences, reading between the lines as opposed to actually listening to what he's saying. And
that's right.
About Davies and about other ones, and the fact that the time we get the players in next week will be a lot stronger. So that's a level of confidence that makes me think we are going to have a number of changes by this time, 11 o'clock next Friday night.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I can't help but feel slightly worried that we're kind of playing a bit of a gamble here. Towards the end of I understand the rationale why, and obviously we've heard loads of times needs to be 1 in, 1 out. Completely get it, and rightfully so. There'll be teams that need to sort of bolster certain areas, and we've got quality players that they could probably take on. But I do worry that we then are playing a bit of a, let's look at this this bid we've made for Kaiki. If that doesn't come off and you've got a day to sort of go in, do you then just chuck a load of cash at it? There is a bit of a panicky sort of situation that can arise, and we've seen that before in the past. So it does worry me slightly, but hey, we're in that situation. Just out of curiosity, Gary, what do you think is our number 1 priority position to bring in now, if you could only have 1 player?
This is a tricky one now. I think there's it's midfield. It's a midfield. It's probably, so if you've got a central midfielder, maybe Diamandi can push forward. If you buy a number 10, it maybe provides that's Diamandi can stay where he is. I think they said Raskin's due back in training, or is back in training, so he should be near fitness. Certainly a central midfielder, whether that's in a box to box or a deep line playmaker or whatever position we want to call it in football manager terms, it's that player that adds that bolster. That's where the big gaps are. That's the lack of depth is certainly in there more than anywhere else.
Yeah. And from an attacking point of view, do you think we'll see any movement for Dessers? I know there was a chat about, or a bit of chat about Atalanta. in the States coming in for him.
The difficult thing with Dessers is if somebody offers £4.5 million or whatever, $6 million or however many euros that may turn into, for a 29-year-old striker that has been a journeyman, went place to place, and to get your money back, it's hard to refuse. I think the challenge for us is we are unlikely to get a player that's going to deliver the number of goals and assists, irrespective of what you think his plays like and other stuff that goes around about it. We're taking a bit of a gamble if we then take that £4.5 million and hope to sign somebody that's going to all of a sudden do the things that we want them to do. So I can see the business sense. The business sense is logical to do that. The footballing sense, I think, is a bit of a gamble that we have no idea whether it's going to pay off or not, really. And as fans, we might think we don't. Some fans may think we don't like Dessers, so let's do it. It'll pay off. For those that think that he's doing a reasonable job in terms of what he's doing, numbers wise, assist wise, robustness, playing games, etc., etc. To me, and I fall in the camp, slightly too big a gamble. I'd rather keep him for the year and then rebuild some other areas first.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think that's exactly my kind of thoughts on it. We've also got Danilo coming back as well, who was actually more expensive than Dessers. So if you're looking at, if we were in the market now and spending $6.5 million on a striker, you'd be excited to see him. I think it's fair to say his Danilo season last season was very stop-start. Not through his fault, just kind of the rough and tumble of the SPFL, I guess. But I do think that there'll be a good player in there as well to supplement Dessers, and Dessers is definitely on an upwards trajectory. I said this on the group on our WhatsApp group earlier. I definitely think that whether or not he's just becoming more resilient, and do you know what, he's just used to it now. He's used to the kind of constant sort of negativity towards him that actually, it doesn't really bother him, and I think you get that sense on the pitch. I definitely feel like he's on an upward trajectory, so I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. I mean, we're all guilty of it. We look at players and we pick up certain things if they do. I think his hold-up plays criticised quite a bit, but I actually think it's been pretty reasonable this season in most cases. But you pick out the one mistake he makes and remember that after the game and talk about it, as opposed to the half a dozen that do well. And I think that's for a lot of players. That's similar when they do something good. If you like the player, you pick out the thing they've done well and forget the stuff they've done badly. And I think he's kind of hamstrung with that a lot of times. People remember the things that he wasn't doing well this time last year, and then give them confirmation bias when he doesn't do them well these days. Whereas actually scored 3 goals and assists.
I guess go ahead, Mason.
No, I'm saying he scored 3 goals and assists out of five goals. I mean, there's not enough a lot more he could be doing.
Yeah, and as well, if we'd have signed the guy in the summer and you didn't have a sort of the sort of preconceptions of what he was doing last season, I'm sure we'd be in a position where we're going, actually, this guy could be a really good goal scorer for us.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's it. So, and I think I was listening to a pod, was it Wednesday? I can't remember. And the profile on him and Danilo and Igamani, they do look as though they might complement each other, being totally different type of players. If Igamani is the Morelos type bustling striker that the fans have all missed and never quite got over yet, and if Danilo's a wee quick nippy player that we thought he is, and Dessers is more of the kind of goal scoring player, they might work well. One of the things, if you look at the Dynamo Kiev game last week, when we went down to 10 men, see if you had somebody like Igamani could have brought on and done that front person hold up player, that would have been ideal. The problem is maybe Dessers has been left to carry a full load for the last 12 months and with no variation.
Yeah, I'd agree. And he suffered the brunt of the fans' frustration as well, as other players in the team. So look, I think fresh start for Dessers. Let's see how he gets on. Igamane, looking forward to seeing the lad come in. I think the stuff I've seen of him, the sort of the profile of the player looks superb. And obviously Danilo coming back. So let's be optimistic, eh? There's a nice feeling. Go ahead, Gary.
I don't think it's a priority position. I think that, and I go back to your original question, I suppose, isn't it? The priority position isn't a striker. The priority position is probably the midfield to help create the chances for the striker or support the defence.
Yeah, and look, I think when we look back with players like Aribo who would go beyond the striker, we've had very little of that this season, right? We've had very little where players gone beyond, taking players with him, creating more space. It's been quite static. And I think that probably comes naturally when you're playing someone like a Lawrence who has been playing in that midfield too, to then step up to a 10. I think that's naturally going to happen. It's not natural for him to then go beyond or sort of be that almost auxiliary second striker if needs be. So Gary, looking ahead to tomorrow, we've got Ross County. Hopefully the last game at Hambrox. And what are your thoughts? They've got two draws from their 2 league games so far. So not a bit of a clunky start for them. Where's your head up with the game?
Yeah, they'd obviously had 2 draws in the league games, but even worse, they had the game last week in the League Cup when they lost to Spartans from League Two, which was a horrendous result. I think that's probably must be one of the worst results in their history alone. As well, just that to lose that type of game. So they're obviously not in great form. I think probably like most of us, what happens is with the SPL teams is they completely revamp their squads every year, and you struggle to know who's good, bad, or indifferent at the start of the season. They obviously lost Jan Danda, who went to Hearts, who was a good creative player. The Simon Murray was a striker, wasn't it? That went to Dundee, that scored against and often scored against us last season, if I remember rightly. So they've lost a couple of their key players. What they brought in to replace them, I'd be lying if I said I've watched them enough to see anything so far. They are a bottom end of the table team. Sadly for them, so at home at Hambrox, as you say, we should be looking to do much of what we've done against Motherwell: push forward, attack. I think the game against Motherwell played a kind of 4-1-4-1 formation and really push them back. We should be looking to do that against teams like Ross County, irrespective of the players they have at this point in time. And the likelihood is they will do the same to us. They will try and hit us on the break, balls pumped down the channels and try and catch us out down that side, because that's how they done last season and did. The game against, we played them at Ibrox last season, and if you remember rightly, this was a game we should have went top of the league with something like 40, 50 chances at goal. I can't remember off the top of my head, but something ridiculous.
I remember.
And we're scoring goal after going 1-3-1. Probably one of our best performances of the season, actually, I think, over the course of the game. I think I was around about the time we played Hearts, and a couple of really good performances. And then we played them, obviously, the game everybody remembers now. Probably the one more notorious one was a defeat.
Dingwall.
When we were really just never got going. And that's probably, going back to Dessers, that's probably the one that people remember. And we talk about confirmation bias. That's the one that people remember, that one he missed to put us 2-0 up. And people say that's the big games he never scores in because we didn't do that and that cost us that game, and so on and so on. But we were just second half were abysmal that game, and they really played well. So we've seen 2 sides of them last season in terms of how we played against them. What side to see tomorrow, who knows? I think we should be looking to really kick on.
Yeah. I think it's always hard going up to Dingwall, isn't it? I don't think anyone enjoys going up there. It's just a 3 points and down the road job, isn't it? You're not asking for anything else more than that. I think that's kind of your pass marks there. But I think tomorrow is probably a moment in time that we can probably set our stall out and really cement ourselves as a challenger this year for the league title. I think we need to have one of those performances, and I think the confidence that will come from that will be amazing. So for me, it's I think they'll probably be one of the teams there or thereabouts relegation this season, based on, as you mentioned, the players that they've lost. I'm not quite sure who they've recruited in, but considering the quality that they've lost, I think they'll definitely be hovering around that area. So it's certainly a must-win game. I know every game in the league is, but I think it's actually a really good opportunity to get probably Danilo, try and get him on the score sheet, try and give Dess's confidence a bit of a boost, and get a good few goals put in.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up our teams that we've predicted. So Dave is going to join us very shortly. But let's have a look at what our predicted lineups are. Bear with me 1 second. Guys, if there's anyone who you think would be a key player for us tomorrow, please put it in the chat. That's going to be my next question.
I'll just pick up on one of the comments while we're there. So I think Gary Winchell was talking about, you mentioned about how we're not getting players running past Dessers to score goals. We're not getting goals from midfield, etc., etc. I think his question, I suppose, is that Clement's fault or the player's fault? I suppose, my view is probably a bit of both, isn't it? We maybe don't have the style of players that do that. I mean, certainly Lawrence is number 10 does shoots religiously and frequently, maybe not been getting positions. Czerny's could and should have had a couple of goals already in the first couple of games. And Matondo, well, he'll run by the player, probably run right out of the pitch a lot of times, but he'll run. And so I suppose tactically it looks to me like Clement wants to get the ball forward quickly and get it direct. I think what we haven't had enough of is the numbers in the box at times, which is probably potentially to do with the style of play, potentially to do with the players that are playing in that position, but probably as much to do with the fact that we play a style whereby we don't cross the ball into the box a lot. It's a lot of stuff outside the box. I don't know. That's my take on it. And then
Yeah.
a lot of shots from outside the box, which was much more than probably Michael Beale and Gerrard and Van Bronckhorst did, if I remember rightly. Some of the statistics. I don't know. That's just.
I'd agree. I was actually rewatching the highlights of the St Johnstone game, and Matondo, as much as he's maligned for his probably quality towards an end product, he's not afraid to shoot. He's not afraid to run at players, and he's got energy to burn. If only we could just harness that, and he could improve his quality as well. I think we'd have a hell of a player there if he's still with us. But I guess my take on your question, Curry, and I'll bring it up for those that hadn't seen it. We were discussing there how we haven't really had a auxiliary striker, someone that's a number 10 that goes beyond the striker, like an Aribo would or a Hadji would have done. And I think that, there's been some good comments in there. Maybe we're not mobile enough. Maybe Tom Lawrence in that area isn't the quickest, isn't the most, nimble player, and probably would find it hard to get back into position. There's probably also a bit of a tactical play where you kind of keep those three front players, the left winger, right winger, and striker, advanced and wide, and therefore it's actually quite hard for the attacker to go beyond. What we have seen recently is when Dessers, and I remember his goal against Kiev away, when he dropped in, received the ball, flicked it, and turned and went, and we broke from there. But you don't often see Dessers coming into that midfield area like you would have done an Alfie to give the players that sort of move beyond him. It does tend to be Dessers who's the furthest forward. So I do think he's probably got a part to play in that as well. Right, on to our teams then, Gary. So I'll bring that slide up for you now. If it, oh, there we go. So talk us through your team, mate.
Well, I think already it's wrong. This was done before the press conference, obviously, and it seems like Proper is still a doubt. And only was it light training, I think, this week, if I listened to him right. So it's probably unlikely that he's going to play. I would have probably said Ben Davies would have replaced him if that was the case, but given that he's potentially winging his way down to Birmingham as we speak, and the fact that Leon Balogun's been fit and training all week, I'd probably switch that. So my immediate switch would be Balogun in for Proper. Other than that, I think it's pretty much the same team that played last 2 weeks ago. Matondo, I think, and Jet and Hefty played well together. If Matondo again, if he's still not far enough down the line that he's potentially leaving, I think he deserves. I think as you said, Ross, Matondo actually has all the attributes to be a really good player. What he doesn't do is put it together often enough, which is a frustrating thing.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a worry when he does go that he's actually probably going to do really well and develop as a player. So hopefully there's a sell-on clause. But him and Hefty looked good last week. They linked up well. What Hefty kind of drove inside. Matondo went out wide. Similar, they mixed up a little bit. Tierney probably needs another 75 minutes or so. And other than that, there's not really a lot of other options jumping out that would come in the team. I think, I'm sure we'll get in the comments, maybe potentially Sterling, McCausland. There's not enough of what else I can think of other than that, is there? Maybe Danilo. But they to me are more likely to come off the bench as opposed to start.
Yeah, we're definitely light in terms of our bench, I guess, and those that we can bring in. Welcome, Dave. How are you, mate?
Hi, Ross. Yeah, I'm good. One day I'll learn to read properly before I assume what time the pod is.
Well, good to have you on. We're just running through the teams at the minute. So, Gary, yeah, look, I think that's as strong as probably we could put out at the minute. I don't know what your take is on it, Dave.
Yeah, to be honest, I think other than potentially Proper, I think he said in the conference, didn't he, that he was a doubt. But I think other than that, that's probably what we're going to see tomorrow, to be fair. I think the one I sent over was a bit more what I'd like to see as opposed to what I expect to see. But I think, to be honest, Gary's probably nailed on. I think you just swap Proper for Balogun, and that's very likely to be what we see.
Yeah. And how do you feel about Balogun stepping into that area, Dave?
I'm pretty relaxed with it, to be honest. I think he's been okay this season when he has played. I think my only concern is, of course, he's not that long back. I think he said he trained for the week, but It's the obvious risk of him picking up another injury. I think with the news that we're seeing of Ben Davies potentially heading to Birmingham, we really can't afford to lose Balogun at the minute. I think Davies goes, and Ciala were all kind of agreed as more of a prospect than a genuine first team contender at the minute. And then really, what have you got left? King, which, given his lack of minutes so far, would probably not fill me with confidence, especially with the game after tomorrow's. So, yeah, it's a concern injury-wise, but I think ability-wise, not too worried about Balogun coming in, to be honest.
And Gary, you've put Jeff Day in at left back. You said he played well last week with Matondo. I'd tend to agree with that. Do you think he's capable enough at left back at the minute to deputise there?
I think against Ross County, it shouldn't really matter. If I'm being brutally honest, I think the fact is that most of the game we should be attacking, and Hefty and Matondo should be. Again, go back to the Motherwell game. If you think back to that first half hour, you'd have Diamande and Cherny almost about 40 yards out, playing one touch down that side, and then some less quality-wise were Wright and Yilmaz and Lawrence at the other side. But the same principle was applying, and I kind of see that tomorrow. You'd have Hefty, Matondo, and be it Lawrence or Diamande really pushed high and wide. You're going to have Barnes sitting with Balogun and Suter effectively, and you're attacking. I don't think there'll be a lot of defensive requirements for him tomorrow. And just picking up just one thing, Lawrence. People talk a lot about Lawrence's pace, and a game like tomorrow, when you're out, you're playing in that front third the majority of the game. It shouldn't really matter too much. It should really be your technical ability there, and that's maybe where these games he should still be able to thrive. I think in games when you need legs and need pressing, that'll be a challenge. But as we are going to be hopefully pushing very, very high most of the game, somebody with Hefty's ability, somebody with Matondo round about with speed is probably the way that I would think you'd get the most out of them. I don't think you need to be focused on defending.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think I think that's really valid what you're saying there. Dave, right, onto your team, mate. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so kind of a mix of what I want to see and what I expect to see. Obviously, same as Gary, I had Proper in at centre back, which we now know is pretty unlikely. I'd actually put Balogun in beside him because I would like to see those two play. I think potentially I don't want to say a weakness, but maybe the area that he's not as strong in is pace in Proper's case. And I think Balogun gives you quite a good foil to that. Tavernier on the right, I think it's just a given at the minute. I hope as the season goes on, we've talked about it on previous pods. I hope those, he gets a bit of a break. We really do. You can slate to have all you want, but in the end of the day, as a club, that guy's played pretty much continuously, and I think it might benefit him in some ways to have a break. I don't see it happening yet. Jeff Day, I was a wee bit torn between him and Fraser. I quite like Fraser, but I think just with the picks that he's made so far, I think it's pretty clear that Hefty is going to be preferred there. And again, with half an eye on next week, I know this game's the focus at the minute, but I think you need a bit of consistency whoever's going to be playing there. So I suspect it will be Hefty. I think he started their last game, plays there, bit of a run. In the middle, I'd quite like to see Sterling and Barron. Do I really expect to see it? Nah, probably not, if I'm being totally truthful. But I would like to see it because it gives that opportunity to push Dio a line forward, which I thought looked okay in the last game. I think, a bit of time in there, he could develop into quite a nice attacking player. But if I'm being totally truthful, I suspect, as Gary said in his team, it'll be Lawrence. Matondo on the left, I don't think you've got Mass's other choice. Could you pitch Fraser in? Yeah, maybe. But again, if Matondo is going to be playing next week, you probably want to get some minutes into him this week. So, yeah, I think on the left, it'll be Matondo. Again, we haven't got Mass as a choice. Cortez, just coming back from injury, already had a couple injuries with us now. I really don't want to rush him. And I get for a lot of people, the eyes will be firmly on next week. For me, I think we need to take that longer term view that we bring him back in at a sort of speed and pace that he can handle it. Cherney on the right, he just completed his first 90 minutes. I think now it's just a case of getting games under his belt, so it's a bit of a no-brainer for me. If he does need rest, then, fine, 60, 65 minutes, you bring young McCausland in there. And up top, say what you want about Dessers. End of the day, he's the only reliable striker we've got at the minute. So, you can knock him and all the rest of it. Does he miss chances? Yeah, of course he does. We all know that. But simple fact is, who else is there, really? I do wonder with Dessers, I think he'll start for sure. But I just wonder when it comes to later in the game, we might see, obviously, Danilo. We might also maybe see a few minutes for Igamani, I wonder. Just with the comment made in the presser today about him training with the first team for 3 days. I don't think he'll get much, but I just wonder if he'll get a few minutes. That's my starting 11. One of the things I did pick up in the presser, and I suspect we'll see again just based on how the game finished last week, is I think we might see some of these young guys that are hanging about the first team getting some more minutes. So that's potentially, Gamani, McCausland, Rice, all these kind of players. I think even Fraser potentially on the left from Matondo. So I think we'll see quite a lot of youth at the end. But for me, we need a strong starting team. We need to see the game off and then worry about giving these guys minutes.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that one. I think hopefully we can get a good few goals in the tank and let players get some minutes. These guys that are knocking on the door and have been for a while, as you say, the sort of Rices, the Frasers of the squad. Gary, I wanted to get your take on it. Dave mentioned there that Dest is probably the only real option as a starter up top, but last week we saw Danilo start up there. Do you not think he could do something similar this week?
I think in the league he'll want to try and get the game a bit more tied up. And I know that sounds a bit strange when a League Cup game is a one-off game. I just think that when he'll pick his strongest team, but there's a bit more rotation last week. I suppose the fact we've had a week without any game means the players should be fit and fresh and a bit more able to play. There's a week before there's another game. I think if we'd been playing the Champions League playoffs, it'd be different. There'd be much more rotation than there probably needs to be at this moment in time. The fact that there is no game till next Saturday, is it Saturday or Sunday? Can't remember. And there wasn't a game since last week, means that you will start with your strongest team and then you'll look to probably bring players on from 60 minutes. So I expect Danilo, expect to see some others coming down, players like that probably come on the last third of the game to kind of give people a rest in. But certainly I would expect the strongest team to start with.
Yeah, cool. Completely agree with that. Right, I'll skip on to my team and talk you through where my head was at. So I have gone for Fraser at left back. I think there was maybe the fact that he got minutes last week was a bit of a prelude to the fact that he's going to be more involved with the first team. I think he did a good job when he was in, and it obviously just then allows Jeff Day further up the pitch, which is, in my opinion, where he is most threatening and probably most influential. I have got Proper in there. I do gather that it probably will be Balogun and Suter, but for me, that's fine. I really like Balogun as a player. I think he's really solid. Kind of reminds me of a Papac, never less than 7 out of 10 in any game. And he's more than able at this level to compete. Suter, I mean, yeah, jury's been out on him for the past few months, probably towards the back end of last season as well. But I think again at this level he should be grand. I'm hoping that, and I'm actually going to put some money on that Tavernier scores tomorrow, a penalty. So watch this space. I've then gone similar to yourself, Dave, I think it was, with Sterling and Barron. So I really enjoyed listening to Barron talking. I think it was today that he did a press conference, and what a humble young guy who clearly kind of has only recently just started to grasp the sort of size and magnitude of playing for a club like Rangers. So really nice and refreshing to see that. And then Sterling alongside him, I think we need to get this guy playing. Simple as that. You know, he is an asset to our team, albeit, you know, maybe his last few performances haven't been at the level that is required. But I do think this is a really good game where you can experiment. I think it's a perfect example of where you could experiment, especially with one eye on next week. And, you know, could Sterling be that guy to break up that midfield three of Celtic that's been so dominant over us, you know, definitely last season and arguably the season before, potentially. I think Sterling tends to turn up at Old Firm games. My front four, so I've put Diamonde up in the 10 just from that mobility point of view. Again, slightly experimental, but I do think that that's what, you know, that's what people want to see. I think a lot of fans and a lot of voices and a lot of, you know, comments online are saying play Diamande further forward. He's mobile, play with both feet, can pick out a pass. So why not try it in this game? You can you know, if it's not working half an hour in, he changed it, and that, you know, would fully accept that. Cherney on the right, as you said, Dave, I think just getting minutes into the legs, he's definitely proving to be a quality player, a player that is able to create things, which is exactly what you need for on that right hand side. And then the goat himself, Big Cyril Dessers up top, absolutely ploughing the goals in at the minute. Love to see it. You know, CD number 9, he's my boy. So yeah, that's my team, lads. Feel free to pick it apart. Gary, what are your thoughts?
I'll probably pick in both here. So I struggle to see, if I'm being honest, why we need 2 sitting midfielders against Ross County. And what's that Sterling there to break up play? So I probably do disagree with that. I think we probably will need to win. I think Diamande coming from a bit deeper will be more beneficial. But we've all picked relatively similar teams. You know, there's a couple of players. There's whether you play Hefty left back or play him left midfield, whether you play Fraser left midfield or left back, whether Matondo's still going to be here tomorrow, who knows? Sterling, I said for both yours and Dave's, Sterling's the one that I probably struggle with because I don't really see in a game like tomorrow what he's adding to the team. When I'd probably rather have somebody like Diamande sitting at that position and then Lawrence further forward, who's more direct and more likely to create and more likely to be able to get a shot and goal. So that's the only one. That's the one that I disagree with probably from both of your teams. Other than that, I'd be content with either.
Yeah. Unlucky for you, Gary, it's 2-on-1, so he's playing. Dave, what are your thoughts? How would you feel with Fraser starting at left back?
I'd be quite happy. As I said, I genuinely do like Fraser from what I've seen of him so far, mate. I think he's positive. I don't think he's looked massively shaky anytime he's been called upon. You look at the last game, he came on at left wing rather than left back, quite happy, still pushed on. So I'd have zero issues with Fraser being in the team. And to be honest, that isn't just for this game. I appreciate this is a good game to kind of play on, try things. You know, we've all said it's probably a game you would expect to be on the front foot a lot, but I actually think Fraser's acquitted himself well. So yeah, I'd have no issues with that. And I think there's an interesting point that Gary made as well with Hefty. I think I'm not entirely sure it matters whether you play him at left back or left mid. As Gary said, he's going to spend most of his time attacking their box. Now, obviously, that'll be different in other games, but for this game specifically, I think that attacking threat, we'll see it regardless of where he starts. I quite liked him at left wing, if I'm being honest. I think potentially, you know, we've all kind of pinpointed that the defensive side of his game is probably the one thing that needs development. This kind of removes some of that element. Obviously, he's still going to need to track back, etc. But it removes some of the defensive element and lets him thrive at what we all know he's good at, which is attacking. I think probably my main objection to your team, if I'm being totally truthful, Ross, is you referring to Cyril Dessers as the GOAT. I'll have he's definitely our best option at the minute. I'll totally accept that. I do not know that GOAT is quite the answer.
He'll prove you wrong, mate. I'll tell you what.
I hope
Ballon
so.
d'Or. Ballon d'Or next season. He's a contender. Watch this space. Watch this space.
Okay, we've got
What's
Kai
that?
saying that Igamani's getting double digits, and now we've got you saying Dessers for the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
Is this just who can make the most outlandish claim now, is it?
Got to. Curry's put an interesting question on, which I'm going to address. So Curry said, question for all three of you. Are you picking Tav because that's what Clement will put in, or that's who you want at right back? So I'm going to address it. I think, firstly, Curry, you do have a slightly obsessive fixation with James Tavernier. I don't know if it's like when you're at school and you actually hate the girls, but you secretly love them, or what. But yeah, might be worth just delving a bit into the psyche on that one. For me, I play him at right back because he's our league title winning Europa League final, Hall of Fame, top goal scorer for the past 4 seasons, and by far the best option that we have at right back. So that's hopefully clears that one up. Dave, what are your thoughts on it?
Quite simply, both. I do think that's what Clement will do. But I would also argue that at the minute, based on what we've seen, he is our best option there. People will talk about Sterling. It's fine. Right back was probably one of the positions he played least last season. I know he is a right back, and that's kind of what we signed him as, but we've not really seen him there at all. Now, he might be good. He's looked solid enough when he has played there, but I don't think he gives you that same attacking impetus. And was it yourself, Gary, that kind of said basically, Ross County are going to be pretty camped in their own half for a lot of this, I would imagine. I think you need that level of attacking support that he offers. So for me, I think, yes, Clement will do it. I also think at the minute, he is our best option there, whether we like that or not. And I'm sure everyone will have a view on that.
Yeah. Gary?
I was just thinking there, thank goodness Doug's not on this pod, innit? Or else we'd be here till 8 o'clock at night. So that's one bonus. Do you know what? I think I am one of Tav's biggest fans. I think that he has. I find it slightly amusing at times. He was heavily criticised by everybody last season for scoring 25 goals and sitting 10 plus assists and still being in the PFA's Player of the Year, 1 of 4. So these people clearly don't know what he does as players. So I think, but this season's been poor. So I'm going to caveat this, to use John Bennett's word, to say he's been really poor this season. Well, I think I'd like to give somebody that's spent 9 years with us and done what he's done a benefit of doubt that he's come back for an operation and not played any minutes, that he's not played any pre-season. He deserves a bit more time from fans. Playing 490 minutes in a row over a space of 2 weeks is bound to have an impact on your performance. So I think as it stands to me, he is the best right back we have. He is probably still one of our best players and is most likely to be one of our own creators as the season goes on. And if you even, I'm going to pick, people maybe not pick up this one, a couple of things. If you look at him and Cherney, I thought the games I've watched, they link up well. They look as though they've got that ability to look, it's just popped up there. As I was saying, they link up well. They've got the same sort of mindset as one moves inside, one moves outside. I think a lot of our goals are going to come when they both reach peak fitness as the season goes on. So I would have him before Sterling at this moment in time, before Devine, and I expect him to play, sadly, maybe in some cases, still play 60 games this season, which is far too much for him and probably far too much for the club anyway.
Yeah. Look, I don't think anyone would disagree that he's getting older, and you can notice it in his patterns of play. But is he? Do you chuck him on the scrapyard, or do you try and get the best out of him still? And I think a game like tomorrow, you'll get the best out of him. Right. Look, we're going to be wrapping up in a sec here, but before I do, I just want to sweep around the panel and get a scoreline prediction for tomorrow, and also just some goodbyes from you. So, Gary, over to you.
So I'm thinking, it's been quite positive thinking about some of the players and attacking, but we're going to be driving forward. Dessers is bound to score at least one or two, and then Danilo late goal off the bench. So I'm going to go 4-0 and convincing performance. 4-0, should have been 7 or 8, and people will go away relatively happy, waiting for the next week of transfer business.
Love it. Well, thanks for joining us this evening, Gary.
Well, thank you. It's been good.
And Dave, scoreline prediction and your goodbyes, please.
Okay. I'm going to go bold, 5-1. I think we're seeing things slowly, but they are starting to come together. We're seeing some of these patterns of play that we've talked about. We're starting to see kind of what Clement's actually after from his team. So I'm going to go 5-1. I think actually, as Gary said, there's a lot of positivity at the minute. If the players can follow that up on the pitch, I think it'll be a really good thing.
Yeah, fair enough. And thanks for joining us as well, Dave.
Yeah, eventually. No, thanks for having me, mate.
Half a
No
shaft.
worries.
Aye.
No
aye.
worries. Yeah.
Hey,
Job and
dog.
not. Right. Well, my prediction for tomorrow, I'm going 4-0. I think, as you said, Gary, I think Dessers will get a couple, Tavernier penalty, and then I think Cherney's going to score as well. So watch this space, guys. As ever, please do like and subscribe and share. The guys put a lot of work into these, all of the graphics and all of the time spent on these. So it's pleasing to see that you guys all respond well to it and enjoy it. So tell your friends about it as well. Let's hope for a great result tomorrow. And get our second win on the trot and start building some momentum as we go for the title charge. Thanks for watching the Rangers Journal.